Warpugs, today we're going to learn about the California Raisins and how they're one of the most dangerous criminal organizations ever to exist. Never thought I'd say that before, but apparently there's a Raisin cartel, and the Fat Electrician's about to tell us about it. Guys, go to thefatelectrician.com, pick yourself up a shirt. Just saying. I have learned about some crazy stuff from this guy, okay? Some crazy stuff. One, some stories that should be movies. Some stories that absolutely 100% should be movies. And then, on the second half of that, I get to learn about weird stuff. Companies and things of that nature. And, like, why we didn't have Christmas lights for a couple of years because we were too busy building fuses. Guys, check out the Fat Electrician if you haven't already. You really should at this point, because you're going to learn a lot and it's entertaining. Because he teaches history the way that I want to teach history. He talks about companies the way I want to hear companies talked about, where I'm learning something cool, where I'm learning something interesting. Like, I didn't know that Arizona iced tea was completely family owned. I didn't know that until I checked him out. I also didn't know the steps that they've taken to keep the cans of Arizona iced tea $1 when everybody else has raised their prices. But that's all that being said, let's get into this. Warpugs, check the links in the description down below, subscribe to me if you haven't already, and join as a member of Patreon for early access. Let's get rolling.
A little bit of pride in the fact that I don't think I've ever engaged in just downright clickbait with an absurd title that has nothing to do with the video, and I'm not going to start today. This is absolutely real. Today we're talking about the United States Raisin Cartel, an entity that is so powerful at its peak, was able to confiscate half of a farmer's crop and pay them absolutely nothing in return.
Okay.
This entity was so powerful and so ingrained in the U.S. system that it took a 13-year legal battle going all the way to the Supreme Court twice before it could be overturned.
What?
But we're going to get into it right after a word from our sponsor.
Let's go.
Yes, sweetheart.
Where are you?
Fishing, just like you told me to.
Where? I mean, your truck is still here.
I'm just upstairs playing Fishing Clash. It's too cold outside.
Nicholas,
What?
I told you I wanted real fish tonight, not from your game.
Oh, I thought you just wanted me to have fun.
No. I can't eat your imaginary fish, just like I can't spend your imaginary internet money.
First of all, Bitcoin is real.
Your mother's coming over soon, so just go to the store and get some fish.
Okay, fine. Never gonna get laid.
You forgot to hang up, and if you want to get laid more, you gotta last more than 2 minutes.
Okay, first of all, last night doesn't count. It was doggy style, so that's technically 14 minutes, okay? Show some respect.
Gosh. Goodbye.
Bye, I love you. Fishing Clash lets you catch way more fish than you ever could in real life from all over the world, all in the comfort of your own home. Not only that, but Fishing Clash is completely customizable, allowing you to unlock and upgrade all of your equipment and even building your own fishing village.
Yay!
They also have daily and weekly events allowing you to compete against other people. But you don't just have to play with random strangers on the internet, you can actually join or make your own clan and play with your friends. In addition to that, they're always adding new features like customizable boats and the Versus Arena. And when you use my discount code FATFILES, you're gonna get $20 worth of free equipment and power-ups right out of the gate. So if you want
Looks like you get a piranha.
to give Fishing Clash a try, I'm gonna have a link and a code down below. Let's get back to the video.
Let's
All
roll.
right, so generally speaking, whenever you end up somewhere stupid, like, I don't know, having a Raisin cartel, it's usually pretty beneficial to understand how you got to that ridiculous point so that we can never ever do it again.
Yes.
So we're gonna take it from the top.
Let's
so
go.
Our story begins in the 1930s during the Great Depression. Americans are poor and they're starving. So in 1932, they elect a new president, FDR, that is supposedly gonna be able to turn this entire thing around. So once he gets into office, he pretty much immediately leaps into action, or wheels into action, issuing a ton of new economic policies, most of which were done through executive order. These policies are usually all lumped together and referred to as the New Deal. Now, if you
So here's the thing, okay? People act like presidents signing executive orders is like a major thing. It has been done forever. It has been done forever. Some have done more, some have done less, but it has been done forever. So people need to stop freaking out about it.
If you talk to somebody that was alive during this period of time, a lot of those people believe that the New Deal policies is actually what pulled America out of the Great Depression. And then if you talk to a lot of different historians or economists, they believe that the New Deal policies actually prolonged the Great Depression. Regardless, the policy that we're focusing on today is the AAA, or the Agricultural Adjustment Act, that happened in 1933.
Okay.
Now, what the Agricultural Adjustment Act attempted to address was the fact that pretty much nobody in America had any money for basically anything, including food. That meant if they couldn't buy food, demand went down down, which meant the prices went down, which meant the farmers were making less money. And obviously that makes business very hard for the farmers, and some of them were going to go out of business and they weren't going to be able to keep up their operation, and we can't allow that to happen because then everybody's going to starve to death. So the policy's intent was to solve a very good problem that needed to be solved. However, how they decided to go about it was kind of fucking dumb. Under the Agricultural Adjustment Act, basically the government would collect tax money and then take that tax money and give it to farmers in exchange for destroying or just not planting a portion of their crop. Farmers...
They still do this, by the way. They still do this, by the way. I don't understand why, but this is still being done.
We're literally paid by the government with U.S. tax dollars to burn entire fields of crops. They killed over 6 million pigs and just let the meat rot, and they dumped out millions and millions of gallons of milk.
It's amazing what these who's just throw away. Oh well. One man's toxic sludge is another man's potpourri.
Okay, if you're not picking up what I'm putting down as to why this was a stupid fucking idea, the people can't afford to buy food, which meant the farmers couldn't sell food. So the government came in and said,
I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
They then went to the people that can't afford food and took some of their money by force and then gave it to the farmers to then destroy the food that these people need to eat because they're starving. And then the prices of the food went up. So now the people that already couldn't afford food definitely can't afford food. It's literally so stupid it's evil. Luckily, we live in America. There's an entire system of checks and balances. And by 1936, the Agricultural Adjustment Act was deemed unconstitutional and overturned by the Supreme Court. So realizing that what he was doing was stupid, evil, and unconstitutional, FDR just let the idea go like any normal person would. No, I'm just kidding. He pretty much immediately issued another program that was basically identical, but it was just different enough to not be unconstitutional this go around, and that would buy him a couple of more years before they could shut him down again. And that
It's amazing how that works. It's amazing how that works so often.
was called the Agricultural Marketing Agreement Act of 1937. Now, coupled with that, in 1937, FDR realized that they're just going to overturn his policies again at the Supreme Court level. So he then attempted to pack the Supreme Court so that he had enough people in the Supreme Court to just pass his policies through, whether they were unconstitutional or not. At this point in time, the Supreme Court had 9 Supreme Court justices, and FDR put out a new policy and tried to force it through Congress that would allow him to appoint 6 more for a total of 15 Supreme Court justices. Now, this act that would allow FDR to appoint more Supreme Court justices did not make it through Congress, but a lot of historians believe the reason it didn't make it through Congress was because as soon as all of this added political pressure got placed on the Supreme Court, and it looked like they were going to lose some of their power by diluting the entire court, some of them switched their opinion over to start letting FDR's New Deal policies through. This is commonly referred to as the switch in time to save the 9, referring to some of the justices switching their opinion over to save the effectiveness of the Supreme Court. Basically, the Supreme Court got bullied into letting FDR do what he wanted,
pretty
whether it was
much
unconstitutional or not. So now that the Supreme Court is scared to shut down
and you know, this whole thing, whether like presidents, everybody acts like this is not the case, and I don't understand why. Presidents do things that aren't right all the time. This is like legitimate fact. Whether you know that or not is really just pointless at this point, because if you think there isn't a president who hasn't done something wrong, you've lost your mind. You have absolutely lost your mind. There is a laundry list of things that each president has done that would be considered ill-advised at the best of time.
FDR for doing anything unconstitutional. In 1938, he reinstates a slightly modified version of the Agricultural Adjustment Act that they had already struck down. But I don't know why you're making FDR seem like he was a bad president. He got us through World War II and he was a great guy. But okay, first of all, I don't know how he gets credit for getting us through World War II when he didn't even make it through World War II. He passed away before World War II ended. As for being a good guy, yeah, maybe, sure, as long as we're willing to overlook attempting to pack the Supreme Court so that he could continue to burn crops while Americans are starving, confiscating gold from American citizens via executive order, refusing to sign anti-lynching legislation because he didn't want to upset the Dixiecrat voter base in the South, solidifying the Federal Reserve, hiding his disability from the American voter so that he could be the only president to serve more than 2 terms.
You're saying
Yes.
Let's talk about fine.
Persecuting 600,000 Italian Americans by declaring them an enemy of the state, where they were then subjected to confiscations, internment, and curfews, and then interning 125,000 Japanese Americans in camps where they lost their homes, their businesses, and had to stay there for years for no reason other than the fact that we were at war with Japan, and their family or they came over from Japan to America because they thought America was better. So yeah.
Yeah, this happened. This happened to the Japanese, to the Italians. I think the couple of other groups, they were all put into internment camps in the United States. This happened, okay?
If we're willing to overlook all that, he sounds chill as fuck. Probably a great guy. I'm getting sidetracked, I'm sorry. So this is the political landscape we have going into World War II. So World War II happens, America raises a massive army. I think it totaled in almost 16 million men throughout the course of World War II. And obviously, you gotta feed 16 million men. And one of the easiest food products to actually buy up and then preserve and ship across an entire ocean without it going bad happened to be raisins. So the United States is now buying up a ton of raisins. So obviously, the demand goes up, meaning the price goes up, meaning more people start making fucking raisins to sell to the US government, because that's how capitalism works.
Right.
Fast forward, World War II ends, the entire military gets to come back home, resume civilian life. The military shrinks dramatically, meaning that you've got less men to feed, meaning that the US government quits buying so many raisins. Now, all the service members could go home and buy raisins on their own if they liked raisins, but guess what? Nobody fucking likes raisins, so nobody's buying the raisins. The price plummets, at which point capitalism should probably kick in again, and the growers are going to realize, oh, there's not a huge market for raisins anymore. I should probably do something else. Now that's what should happen. But in this particular instance, the government, for whatever reason, decides, you know what? I like raisins. I think we should keep overproducing raisins, and then the government will come up with some solution on how to stabilize the price of raisins.
This looks familiar.
Does anybody smell cheese? Does anybody smell cheese? I got this real cheesy smell.
Where have I seen this before? Let me think.
Oh,
Which is
that!
great news, because if the US government has a long proven track record of doing anything at all good, it's obviously stabilizing things. I mean, look at the Middle East. So the government says, okay, here's what we're going to do. Under the authority of the Agricultural Management Agreement Act of 1937, we're going to use that authority to create a new government entity that we're going to call the Raisin Administration Committee. We're going to have a whole government entity at the federal level solely committed to raisins. Now, right off the bat, that sounds kind of dumb, but don't worry, it gets way worse, because the Raisin Administration Committee is actually directly under the authority of the Department of Agriculture. And the reason that's a big deal is because the Department of Agriculture was founded with executive authority in 1862, meaning that the Department of Agriculture is part of the executive branch of the United States government, which more or less means whatever policies they adopt internally are basically de facto written into law, and if anybody disagrees, they have to take them to court and prove that it was unconstitutional, which is a gigantic hurdle that takes years.
Yes.
If you're not picking up what I'm putting down, I'm trying to tell you that the federal government just created a new federal entity for raisins that has executive authority. So the Raisin Administration...
So the California raisins are backed by the FBI, the CIA, the NSA, and everything. That's just wonderful.
Committee immediately gets to work stabilizing
and the Department of Justice
the price of raisins, aka driving the price of raisins up, even though they shouldn't cost that much. So they get to work at doing it, and the plan they come up with how to do it is they're going to go to every raisin grower, farmer, manufacturer, however you want to do that. You fucking grow grapes and then you leave them out in the sun, whatever that guy is. They go to those guys and they're like, hey, here's the new policy that we've just written into law under nobody's authority. The new rule, the new law, is that you're going to have to give us a certain percentage of your crop every year based on however much we decide you're going to give us. And you have zero recourse. We're going to take it for a grand total of free 99. We're not going to give you shit. And we're going to hoard it in the National Raisin Reserve. Now, once they're in the National Raisin Reserve, we can go ahead and do whatever the fuck we want with them. A lot of the times, we're donating them to the military for rations. We're donating them to schools for school lunch programs. This is why every person my age and 20 years older than me and probably younger than me has eaten a shit ton of these in elementary school. It's because the government was getting them for free by stealing them from farmers. Now, to be completely fair and intellectually honest, there was a way that the farmers could make some money from the National Raisin Reserve, and that was if the Administration Committee decided that that they weren't going to donate it to school programs or the military or sit there and let it rot, which they did to a ton of raisins. They just literally rotted and they had to throw them away. If the entity did decide that they wanted to sell some of the raisins to a foreign market that didn't interfere with the American raisin price, whatever they sold that for, the farmers would get a kickback. But if they did sell it, it was at a highly reduced rate and the money amounted to nowhere near the cost of actually growing the raisins. Okay, do you understand what has happened? This is literally a raisin cartel. Like, this isn't clickbait. This isn't, oh, the Fat Electrician came up with a funny name for his YouTube title. No, the definition of cartel is literally, and I quote, an association of manufacturers or suppliers with the purpose of maintaining prices at a high level and restricting competition. It is straight up a raisin cartel.
People, listen up. This is a national security emergency. We have an imminent threat.
The Raisin Administration Committee is literally rolling up to every raisin grower in the country saying, give me a cut or else. And this goes on from 1949 until 2015. But the hero of our story comes into play in 2002. And that hero is a humble raisin farmer by the name of Marvin Horn, who in 2000/2003 was told by the Raisin Administration Committee that this year they would be confiscating 47% of his crop and giving him fucking nothing in return. Just so we're on the same page, the federal government rolled up to a raisin farmer and said, hey, I'm gonna steal 47% of your crop, but don't worry, you can keep the other 53%. But I just need to mention, once you sell that 53% of your raisin crop, that's gonna count as income and you're gonna have to pay income taxes. And then
my God.
and whatever money is left, you can have to spend on whatever you want. But whenever you spend that money, I'm also going to charge you sales tax. It's literally the mafia. Anytime money moves, you got to give the grape father a cut. Okay, you're dealing with the grape fellas. I'm so sorry.
No, you're not.
I did one dad joke. I'm done. Okay?
No, you're not.
It's just the entire situation is completely unreasonable. Yeah, Ben.
Nick, oh my God, I missed my period.
I know.
What do you mean you know?
I heard it through the grapevine.
Goodbye.
Anyways, by this point, Marvin Horn is driven to the brink. He can't stay in business functioning like this, so he's just driven to the edge, and he finally stands up for himself and he says, no, I'm not going to keep living like this. I'm not going to give you 47% of my entire crop. I'm going to keep everything that I own, and I'm going to sell it myself. And the Raisin Cartel is immediately furious.
Playing with my money is like playing with my emotions.
So the Raisin Administration Committee orders him to pay back the value of the raisins to the committee, approximately $400,000. And then, because he wasn't a good little boy that just forked over half of his living, they decided they were also going to fine him an additional $200,000 for his disobedience, which apparently is completely legal because they have executive authority, which means apparently you can do whatever the fuck you want all the time and it's not against the rules. So Marvin Horn realizes he's going to have to defend himself, so he starts looking into the law, and he starts at the first place that you should always start, the Constitution. Okay, Amendment number 1 says I can pray to whoever I want and say whatever I want, and you're not allowed to stop me. Amendment number 2 says I have guns if you disagree with the first one. And rule number 3 says I don't have to have soldiers sleep in my house. Rule number 4 says no unreasonable searches and seizures. Oh, here we are. Rule number 5, where it clearly says, and I quote, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. Sounds to me like it's a pretty clear-cut case of it's a violation of the Fifth Amendment. So obviously, they go to court. Marvin Horn wins immediately because he can literally read the 5th bullet point of the founding document of the entire fucking... No, I'm just kidding. A 12-year legal battle ensues that goes all the way to the Supreme Court, gets kicked back down into another district court, and then goes back to the Supreme Court again. So after a damn near 13-year-long legal battle, Marvin Horn finally wins with the Supreme Court siding in his favor in an 8-1 decision. And this is the part where I wish I could end the video just saying like, hooray, the good guys finally won in the end, and it all worked out, and we all got together and sang Kumbaya by the fireplace. The Raisin Administration Committee lost its federal status, and they just became a lobbying group. The Federal Raisin Reserve evaporated into thin air, and it all went away, and all was right in the world. But my brain doesn't work that way because I have to know who the Supreme Court justice was that voted against Marvin Horn. So I...
Inform me.
Looked into it, and of course, it was Supreme Court Justice Sotomayor. So I went, I found her dissenting opinion where she wrote it up. I'm not going to read it to you guys because it's like 20 pages and it's all in lawyer jargon. But the abbreviated version of her argument was she didn't believe what the Raisin Administration Committee was doing was technically a taking. And her justification for that was, well, technically, even though the Raisin Administration Committee did in fact take his shit without his permission, they could have potentially, if they decided to, sold some of those raisins. And if they did sell some of those raisins, they were gonna give him a small portion of the proceeds. Therefore, that's not technically a taking.
I'm sorry, what kind of mental gymnastics did I just hear? Under no circumstances is this less than a taking. Like, if somebody comes up to you at the ATM and mugs you while you're at the ATM, taking $500 of your money, and then gives you a 20 back, that's still stealing.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it.
Do you understand how violently stupid that opinion is? Okay, like let's apply this logic to any other situation, okay? Let's say that I'm a burglar and I break into your house. I sit you there on the table and I take 47% of all the shit in your house. I steal it, I walk away, I'm fucking gone. Later, the cops catch me, okay? And while I'm arrested in handcuffs and they take me into court, I look the judge in the face and I go, well, Your Honor, it technically wasn't me being a burglar and stealing because I was considering selling some of their shit at a heavy discount to a pawn shop. And if I did that, I had every intention of giving them some of the money back later. Do you think the judge would let me not go to prison? No, because that's fucking dumb.
Yeah.
I don't even know how I got here, okay? Like a week ago, I got an email. Somebody said like, hey, Fat Electrician, you should look into Marvin Horn, the raisin farmer that defeated the federal government. And now I have this conspiracy theory about how FDR created a raisin cartel that extorted raisin farmers for 70 years straight. And I'm making a video for the internet, probably pissing off the raisin cartel, and now I need to go into witness protection because they're going to come and sun dry me and my whole family. I have to go. I got to go get ready for an altercation with the Raisin Mafia, I think. Thanks for watching. Best way to support the channel is go buy some merch over the fatelectrician.com. Quack bang out.
Oh my God.
And now, wait. Yeah, babe.
You just got a weird package from the Raisin Administrative Company.
Do not open.
We're gonna go back to that. Hold on. What does he have on? Energy drinks yeah. That'll work. That'll do just fine. That'll do just fine, Warpugs. Guys, this is the Fat Electrician. This is the reason why I love this channel so much. This is a prime example. Warpugs, this is the reason why we have nice things. This is the reason why we have nice things. There's enough reasons why we don't have nice things. This is one of the reasons why we do have nice things. I hope you enjoyed this because God knows I did. The sheer fact that there are so many government entities that are just ridiculous, and that opinion, look, I don't get into politics, but anybody can tell that opinion is dumber than a box. Like that opinion is dumber than a box of rocks. I'm just saying, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. That is one of the dumbest things I've ever, like, ugh. How do you do the mental gymnastics to make that reasonable in your own head? That's my question on this. That's my question on how this is. What are you even talking about? Warpugs, I'm going to take off from here. Check out the Fat Electrician. Check out his website. Check out the links in the description down below, because I'm going to have everything for him down there. And I will catch you guys next time. And Warpugs, that is a dumb opinion.